Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond is a documentary film, and the documentary is about what happened behind the scenes during the making of the movie Man on the Moon, where Jim Carrey committed to playing the late comedian Andy Kaufman. I'll get what I didn't like about this documentary out of the way first, because this documentary, I loved it. Firstly, I wasn't a fan of how this documentary started. I felt it was a bit rushed. Literally, the first 4 minutes is basically just setting up what happened back then. And one more thing, I do think at points during the documentary, it did become a little bit distracted and it did lose focus. The documentary tended to jump around between Jim Carrey's career, Andy Kaufman's career, and what happened behind the scenes of Man on the Moon. And there were moments that were talked about during the documentary that didn't really tie into what the rest of the documentary was building on. But other than those two problems, I love this movie. Is it a great documentary? No, but it is a really, really powerful documentary. One of the best things the filmmakers of this documentary did was only have one person be interviewed, and that was Jim Carrey. And I read into why they chose to do it this way, and if they had the other cast and crew, it would have become a glorified DVD special feature. So by just having Jim Carrey explain what happened and why he became Andy Kaufman, it became much more powerful that way. One of the best things about this documentary that always delivered was the behind the scenes footage. Every time you see Jim Carrey fully commit to playing Andy Kaufman and Tony Clifton, it is unbelievable. And I have a feeling when some people watch this, they'll think, come on, there's been other movies where other actors have fully committed to their roles. What's so special about this one? For me, what makes this stand out is Jim Carrey is playing an actual person, and he actually fully commits to playing this actual person. In fact, he physically and mentally embodies what Andy Kaufman was, to the point where Jim Carrey no longer becomes Jim Carrey, instead he becomes Andy Kaufman. And as Jim Carrey brings up during the documentary, Andy Kaufman returned to make his movie. A lot of the behind the scenes footage was very confronting because, as Jim Carrey puts it, the reason why this footage has never been seen for 20 years is because the studio didn't want people to think Jim Carrey was an asshole. But as I said, Jim Carrey is not Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is embodying Andy Kaufman. And you see people throughout the documentary who talk about how close they were to Andy and how they understood him and how very much close Jim Carrey got to being exactly like Andy. And for the cast and crew of the film, it really felt like that Andy was there. And there's this one moment that really got to me during this documentary. As Jim Carrey brings it up, during the filming of the film, Andy Kaufman's daughter got in contact and wanted to meet Andy Kaufman because she was orphaned and never met her real dad. And the way she found out that Andy Kaufman was her father was while watching his TV show Taxi. And Jim Carrey, as Andy Kaufman, got to meet Andy Kaufman's daughter. And something that seems so unbelievable, a father and daughter meet for the first time. And they discuss why he wasn't there for her and stuff like that. And this got to me, and I actually kind of nearly broke down. Like I said at the beginning of this review, the start of the documentary is very rough, but the more the film goes on, the more better it becomes, and it truly becomes something special and powerful. One of the best things that Jim Carrey describes about Andy Kaufman is Andy Kaufman's comedy style was he didn't care what people thought of him. And he went out there and did what he did. The last 10 minutes of this documentary, which I won't give away, is powerful stuff, and it truly reflects what life is really about. And Jim Carrey even admits that after playing Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon, he didn't even know who he was, because throughout that entire shooting, he was Andy Kaufman. And he got to experience what Andy Kaufman's life was like. Overall, this is a must-see documentary. And like I said, it's not a fantastic documentary, but it's a powerful documentary. And it has a very strong message behind it. The only problem I had with the documentary was the start of it, and how the documentary lost focus at points. But this was a damn good documentary. All of the behind the scenes footage is fascinating to watch. And it's a thing of beauty to see an actor fully commit to playing another actor, especially to the level that Jim Carrey took it to. So when you get the chance, I would definitely recommend checking this out on Netflix. And I'm going to give Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my channel below. As always, I'm NETX5. Thank you for watching.